The Cosa Nostra has an ancient code of silence known as which can be broken only in self-defense or in defense of another member of the family. And although it's not a requirement to join the Mafia, if you want to earn their trust, then you have to keep secrets. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll be looking at the Mafia Code of Silence, what it entails, why they do it, and what happens if it's broken. But before we get into all that, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel to support us. But for now, let's get into today's video. The Italian word means silence, and it refers to the obligation of Mafia members to remain silent when questioned by the police. This is one of the main reasons the Mafia is so difficult to infiltrate and break up, because once arrested, a member will often refuse to cooperate with authorities, even if given immunity from prosecution. There are some exceptions to this rule, such as when a Mafia member is defending himself or another member, but these cases are rare. In 1984, U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intelligence reported that the origins of could be traced back to the Sicilian Mafia, its participation in the wars between rival Italian states during the Middle Ages. As the wars continued to claim lives, entire families were being wiped out, leading to a decline in population. It was during this time that the first organized crime groups emerged. They realized the only way to survive was to stick together and protect each other. So they formed a brotherhood bound by blood, honor, and secrecy. If anyone broke the code, then the others would kill them. It didn't matter if they were related or not. This was the birth of the Mafia. By the 17th century, Sicily had come under the rule of Spain, and it became dangerous for the Mafia to continue operating. So they went underground and turned to other criminal activities such as extortion and murder for hire. The Catholic Church also played a role in the development of during this time in Italy. The clergy were exempt from paying taxes and followed their own laws. However, many of them took advantage of the poor and exploited them for personal gain. This caused a great divide between the people and the church, and as a result, the Mafia formed an alliance with them. This made it more difficult for the police to infiltrate the organization because they were constantly suspicious of anyone who cooperated with the authorities. In the early days, the police force in Italy was very small and corrupt. Many of the officers were on the payroll of the Mafia, so it was extremely hard to find anyone willing to risk their life and go against them. These days, things have changed. There are more police officers than ever before, and they're better equipped and trained than their predecessors. However, the Mafia still remains one of the most feared and respected organizations in the world. This is due in large part to their code of silence. When someone becomes a member of the Mafia, they're not allowed to talk about what goes on in the organization. Even if they're arrested and offered immunity from prosecution, they will often refuse to cooperate with the authorities. This makes it extremely hard for the police to build a case against the Mafia and bring them to justice. The Mafia takes their code of silence so seriously that if anyone breaks it, they will be killed. It doesn't matter if you're a low-level soldier or the boss of a family. If you break the code, then you're a dead man. For example, in 1985, a Mafia turncoat named Tommaso Buscetta gave evidence in court against his former associates. He testified against them in over 50 trials and helped put more than 300 members away for life in prison. However, he was constantly under threat of death and had to move from city to city in order to stay safe. Eventually, the Mafia caught up with him and killed him in 1993. Another example of the Mafia's code of silence is the case of Giuseppe Domino. He was arrested in 1992 and sentenced to 26 years in prison for Mafia association. While in prison, he was interviewed by an Italian journalist and told him everything he knew about the organization. Diem Suppressa, however, when he was released from prison, he immediately disappeared. It's believed that the Mafia killed him because he broke the code of silence. Breaking the code of silence is considered the ultimate betrayal in the Mafia. If you're a member and you talk to the police about what goes on in the organization, then you're basically saying that you do untrust your fellow members, that you're willing to sacrifice them in order to save yourself. This is seen as the worst thing you can possibly do. If you're arrested and asked questions by the police, then you have to remain silent. You can't give them any information about the Mafia. If you do, then they'll know that you've broken the code of silence and they'll kill you. Even if they have to let you go because of lack of evidence, they'll be watching you closely. If you try to leave the Mafia or go to the police, then they'll kill you. The police know that Mafia members won't talk to them, so they have to use other methods in order to get information. They might wiretap phones or bug a meeting, but they can't count on getting any useful information. The mafia is extremely careful about what they talk about and who they talk to. If you're in the mafia, then your family is also in danger. If you have a son or daughter, and they start dating someone that the police have arrested for mafia association, then your whole family is at risk. The police might try to use the person they re-dating as a way to get close to you and your family. They might try to get your child to talk to them, or even plant a bug in your house. If the police find out that your child is dating someone connected to the mafia, then you can expect them to be arrested, along with the rest of your family. You also can't talk to anyone outside the organization about what goes on in the mafia. This includes your wife, friends, and relatives. If they hear anything about the mafia from you, then the other members will know that you've broken the code of silence, and they'll kill you. If you want to be in the mafia, then you have to be willing to live your life in secrecy. You can't trust anyone, and you have to be prepared to die at any moment. The mafia is a dangerous world, and only those who are willing to do whatever it takes to survive should enter. In America, there have been several instances where mafia members have been arrested and tried for racketeering, extortion, gambling, and other crimes. However, these trials have been difficult because of the code of silence. Even if the prosecution has enough evidence to convict the mafia members, they often refuse to testify against each other. This makes it impossible to get a conviction because there's no way to prove what the mafia members are guilty of. One way the authorities have gotten around this is by using the mafia's code of silence against them. If a mafia member refuses to testify, then the prosecution can argue that it's because they're guilty. They can say that the defendant is being protected by the code of silence, but that if he wasn't involved in the crime, then he wouldn't mind if his friend or associate testified on his behalf. However, this tactic hasn't always worked, and the mafia still remains one of the most feared and respected organizations in the world. Now we're going to answer some of the questions you guys had about the mafia and what's the punishment for breaking the code of silence. As we've already mentioned, the punishment for breaking the code of silence is death. It doesn't matter if you're a low-level soldier or the boss of a family. If you break the code, then you're a dead man. Can women be part of the mafia? Yes, women can be part of the mafia, but they're usually only allowed to be involved in low-level activities. They're typically used as prostitutes or to launder money. Women are also often recruited to spy on other mafia families and provide information. However, they're always considered outsiders and are never trusted with sensitive information. What are some of the ways the police have gotten around the code of silence? One way the authorities have gotten around the code of silence is by using it against the mafia. If a mafia member refuses to testify, then the prosecution can argue that it's because they're guilty. They can say that the defendant is being protected by the code of silence, but that if he wasn't involved in the crime, then he wouldn't mind if his friend or associate testified on his behalf. Another way the police have gotten around the code of silence is by offering mafia members immunity from prosecution. However, this only works if the mafia member is low level. The bosses are never offered immunity because the authorities know that they'll never cooperate anyway. Well, that wraps up today's video. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe button to help us grow. Leave a comment below about what you thought of the video, and we'll see you next time.